Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ryan Hilliard, CEO here of Refersion. I want to thank you all for joining our webinar today, the Affiliate Trifecta, recruiting better, converting more, and keeping your affiliates, influencers, brand ambassadors for longer. Joining me today is Kenyon, CEO of CreatorCommerce. Let me add him to the stage here. Kenyon, welcome. He's going to help us really dive into the impact of creating personas, how you do it, why they matter, why they're really critical to achieving sort of sustainable long-term growth within these affiliate brand ambassador influencer programs that people are running. Kenyon, we'll get into the meat of things here in a minute as folks are joining, but maybe you can go ahead and introduce yourself and your role and what you guys are doing at CreatorCommerce.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. It's nice to meet everybody. Thanks for spending some time on your Thursday with us and Ryan here. My name's Kenyon. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of CreatorCommerce. What we do is we help power co-branded shopping experiences and storefronts for different brands, ambassadors or influencers, or even B2B partners like salons or estheticians at scale, so that when people click their Refersion affiliate links, that traffic can actually funnel into a very high converting experience to back it up with that creator's name and likeness and product recommendations, and work with brands from G Fuel to Nudes to Crocs to Cozy Earth. And so we are excited to be taking everything we've learned about personas as it applies to recruitment, conversions, and rolling it out and sharing the secrets here. So thanks for having us on the call here, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely, Kenyon. And I want to underline, I mean, the experience for users is just so good in terms of like you click through a link and you feel like you're still on this brand. I mean, you are still on this brand's website, right? But you're also seeing that carry through of like, well, here's the kind of content that I engaged with. Here are the products that I was looking at. This is conversion optimization at its finest. We all know from like the paid ads days of they search a keyword, that keyword needs to be in the ad text, it needs to be in the description, it needs to be in the display URL, it needs to be on the landing page. And it's sort of like it encapsulates that really, really well. Today, I'm in Raleigh today. I'm always in Raleigh. I'm from Raleigh. It's super rainy, but Kenyon, you're talking about this before. You're in Minneapolis, but maybe for like another 30 minutes. What gets you?
Yeah, this is basically last leg of my time in Minneapolis. Right after this call, I'm basically literally shutting the laptop, heading to the rental truck yard, and grabbing our U-Haul and packing up to head out to San Francisco. So it's a pleasure to have my last memory here for the time being with all you guys. So exciting day for all reasons.
This is the go away party.
Yep, this is the go away party.
Well, cool. Well, just as we're about to dive in, folks will be joining on StreamYard, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. If you have any comments, questions, things that you'd like to get a little bit of perspective on, feel free to add them. We'll try to tackle them at the end of the webinar today. I think beyond that, that's sort of the housekeeping we have. This will be recorded in case you are attending it late, or if you want to share it with others, just use the link that you're actually on right now. It's already there. But let's just dive into it, Kenyon. Partner personas. So I've done affiliate and influencer marketing before, and I'll be candid. It was maybe crude is not quite the right word, but it was just, hey, this seems like a fit. Like, let's just try it. And in some cases, you get lucky and it works really, really well. Sometimes that's a bad thing because then you're like, I know how to do this. And then you do it again and you whiff pretty mightily. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into it again. But sort of CreatorCommerce is sort of built around this idea of like the importance of a persona, right? And matching that landing page experience and all of that. But I'd love to get your definition just so everybody has a baseline here. When you say partner persona, when you're talking to an e-commerce merchant or a D2C brand, like what do you mean? And then like, why is it so important? Why can't I just treat everybody the same?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think the biggest crime in this space right now is the thought process that affiliates are this kind of ethereal, similar persona that really just cares about money, and just giving them a commission is enough to really matter. And the reality is just like how your customers have very, very distinct personas, and some personas work, some personas do not. It's of course the same when it comes to your partners, even more importantly, because there's motivations that extend well beyond do they believe in your product. There's motivations that are financially driven, that are reputationally driven, that are driven around, what is their social circle, like how can they speak to you in certain settings. And so a persona really is like the classification of an affiliate in the context of what motivates them, and what is their audience, and how do they speak to their audience in the sense of like what do they risk, what do they put on the line every time they speak about a product in front of them. And that's really the best way to think about a persona in terms of the stories they're able to tell, their ability to tell those stories freely, and what their motives are to tell those from either a financial or reputational standpoint. And so to put that in like literal terms, like a persona could look anything from, Utah-based moms to, salon owners based in Los Angeles to 20-year-old to 25-year-old influencers in the United States. Like really the slicing and dicing of those personas really should look a lot more similar to the way you slice and dice your customers. They may not be one-to-one, but they are the same in the sense that there is a person behind these personas, and some of those folks are going to be a lot more valuable to your program than others.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times folks might tend to pivot around, I've got a persona that's high performers and low performers, but it sounds like, yeah, that's not really like, if you're in terms of fostering engagement and getting the most from the partnership, it's almost agnostic to the performance that they're actually driving. It's recognizing this is what makes them tick. This is how they engage with their audience. And we need to lean into that if we want to see, well, one thing is success from them as a partner, but then also just engagement from them as a partner, keeping them there after you've done so much work to recruit them, treating them like they sort of would like to be treated, how they sort of think about this. When you were saying that, it reminded me of this book, The Platinum Rule. It's probably like a 15-year-old business book at this point, but recognize like how do they want to be treat people like they want to be treated, right? So recognizing like how do they interact with their audience. If it's a little bit different, I need to make an offer or a plan or a communication style that resonates with that. Because you could have different personas that perform equally well, but they're distinct. Am I getting that right?
I think that's spot on. I think it is unfortunately too often a low performer versus high performer kind of mindset. And I think that can work in scenarios where maybe you are, I don't know, turning your customers into affiliates. That can be a slicing of way where you're basically only segmenting on performance. But if your goal is actually grow the program and go out there and really attract a specific type of person, you really need to factor in what is that language, what is the way they like to be treated, and bake that into. We're going to talk about the full range of spectrum here, but it always begins at the first impression, the first outreach, and make it very clear that you are built for them from a partnership perspective too.
Yeah, it's a great segue into sort of like this next question, which is you start to identify types of personas, whether it's, okay, here's a typical publisher affiliate that is like the same kind of affiliate that maybe you saw 20 years ago, right? Like they're just motivated by driving that volume. And then here's our sort of bench of micro and nano influencers. Here are our, people that have just a blog, right? They're probably have social media channels, but like their core business is their blog. How do you sort of use that information? Maybe we could pick examples, or we could stay high level. I always like getting into some specifics, but how do you use that kind of information to recruit, convert them into, you want to be a partner, you're going to work with me in whatever integration facet that makes sense for your platform as well as for our product, and then keeping them, right? Because the one thing that we've talked about in these webinars that sort of repeats itself, whether it's a partner conversation or a customer conversation, and they're all varied, but you have to retain these relationships to get the most fruit. These, especially in affiliate, it can't be one and done, right? It's too much time investment to not get enough back. You have to foster something that just is kind of evergreen. So how do you go about doing that the best way when you're thinking about these personas?
That's a great question. I look at it as the 1-2 punch, and I think like I'll try to do my best to be very literal here, which is like I think when we talk about recruitment, there's the outbound, the approach, for folks who don't quite know you yet, or maybe they've purchased from you and they don't know that this is a way that you would ever approach them. So this is, you're not approaching them to buy something, you're approaching them to partner. And then there's the inbound effort of I've approached them and now I've directed their attention towards a way to apply and actually get into the program. So there's two surfaces we're talking about. It's like the outbound DM or outbound email, and then there's the inbound registration piece of like the language you're using. And I think the 1-2 punch is to first focus on how do you remove any reason they shouldn't work with you before you even get into benefits or like or the reason or all the great reasons about your product, all the great ways they can make content with your product. The first thing that people forget about is the reputational side. So whether you're going after practitioners or you're going after just a more traditional content creator, you want to just evaporate the reasons that could be in their head for why they shouldn't work with you. You know, is this snake oil? Is this a like is this a cheap crappy product? You know, evaporate those quickly. Show them how many reviews, 5-star reviews you have. Show them all the medical research back behind your product. Show them the total number of other affiliates that already work with you. We already work with 1,000 other medical practitioners, or we already we've seen over 3,000 positive impressions of our product. Show them that and just get rid of the risk associated with them just even taking that call or leaning in or applying here or associating themselves. Once you've evaporated that risk and this all feels like very supportive of something that they could associate themselves with, then you want to show them how to make it work. Show them how do people typically make content? What are the best formats? How do people speak about us? How do these trials typically look if you try this and it's a supplement? So remove that risk and then create a future for how they can envision themselves literally talking about you as well, or trying the product out. I would follow that 1-2 punch, but then that's where the personas comes in, where, you know, if you're talking to someone who's more professional, you really got to think about them putting their brand on the line. While if you're talking to a creator, you got to think about them putting their trust on the line. But it's totally two different, you're going to be using two different sets of vocabulary. You're going to be talking about two different ways they can go about it. One's going to be making more content. One's going to be putting together more of a thoughtful pitch. And that stuff matters because that's how they know that this is not a smart and savvy but blasted email or just blasted thing they're running ads to. They know that like, actually, no, they reached out to me because I do fit in this bucket. So I actually trust that they're reaching out to me for a reason. So it's been a long-winded way of saying how to start on the recruiting side when it comes to personas. Yeah, I guess that's where I don't know if Ryan, if you have anything to add there on the recruiting side.
I think so. My previous role, one of the last company I was at, we would really coach brands on vetting creators to align with your brand, reaching the audience that you want. But I think what you're touching on is equally important. Is like after you do that, recognize that the creator is probably going to do the same thing to you, and so you want to just assume they are going to want to measure me as to how do I support their audience? How am I bringing value to them and relevance to them? How am I lifting this creator's brand, right? Because ultimately they want to have something that's going to help grow them and not detract them. And so it's pretty easy of an exercise to go, okay, so how might they, what problems might we run into, right? They've never heard of me because I'm a newer startup, or we're just coming over from overseas and now we're trying to establish ourselves in this market. Let me go ahead and tackle that, right? Or if I know it's a more performance-oriented publisher, how can I, we just started a program, but like I want to show them conversion rates, things that they need to think about. Oh, we raised money on Kickstarter for a product and we oversold, or we hit our goal within a day. like things that disarm them. So they're like, okay, you're already thinking about what I'm thinking about. And I don't think it's that hard, like you were talking about. It's just a matter of doing it, because often the assumption from the merchant side or the brand side is, we have determined that you are great, therefore we will allow you to sell our things or promote our product. And then they go, well, wait a minute, like that's pretty presumptive of you. And so recognizing that it's a two-way street ultimately if you want to be successful. So
yeah, Joseph put a great comment here in terms of what's in it for that. I think that's perfect way to put it. But I'd add to that, say what's in it for them, and here's why you're not actually taking a risk with us, because we work with these 3,000 other creators, or if you don't work with 3,000 other creators yet, you can't say anything that dramatic. We work with this creator who you might surely know, or if you don't even have a name that you feel like you can name drop, and maybe you're on like week 1, show them a creator. Like here's a creator who we're working with, and you can just really see it and believe it and feel it.
Yeah, or if I would even say, like, if you are day one and you feel like they're just the perfect fit, like make the case for like this. Yeah. I genuinely think you're the perfect fit for this. And if you've done your homework, they might actually be. If you haven't, then they'll be able to tell that this is just some mass email to 1,000 different people, and they'll just ignore it. That stuff isn't work. So.
And that actually leads me to a segue going from like recruitment to, I guess, in between recruiting and conversion is actually the secret in between step, which is activation, which is, someone's recruited and technically in the program, but how do you get them to the point where they actually have driven the traffic? And that's like the secret step of activation. And I think if you are square one with your program, or maybe the program exists, but you're switching gears to focus on a little bit more, do not underestimate the power of a Google Meet, a Zoom, a phone call to drive that point home of like, hey, I might not be sitting on a ton of case studies to wow you into why this should happen, but I just want to say, like, I really want to work with you. I have like 5 really great ideas for how this can work with you. Your content's perfect. Your alignment's perfect. I think your audience would love it. I'll give you any product you want to try. Get on the phone and tell them that so they can feel that emotionally from your voice and how much you really care, and prove it by the fact that, like, yeah, I am literally taking like an hour out of my day to talk to you and like talk about these concepts. So I do not underestimate that. There's so many brands I work with now who are even doing millions a month through affiliate, who still will allocate at least 20 to 30 meetings per month, activating new talent that they think has really good potential and that they really want to work with. And they know that 60 minutes of work might pay dividends in terms of, 20K, 30K a month in revenue long term for some of those figures.
Yeah, and I think for folks that are joining a little bit later, or if you've been on the whole time, the sort of underlying importance of this, and this will be a good segue to the next question, is that when you understand what makes people tick and you get that alignment, it drives up performance. It makes conversion rates higher, right? Your ability to make an impact with that audience, to grow your business, is higher, right? That's at the end of the day, the whole reason that the sort of motivation that behind Refersion, the motivation behind CreatorCommerce, is that this enables conversion rates. It enables merchants of all sizes to grow because they're putting a good product in front of the right audience. And we want to make it so that that's the most optimized process of all. So this isn't just, oh yeah, let's touchy-feely, and that's all that there is. I mean, it's important to remember people are working with people, but these things will then translate to, like, this question here is like, how do you tailor offers and strategies to these personas, and what does that do to success? And so, Kenyon, I guess I would pass it to you. Is, I think the answer to the question is probably yes, but like, how do you think about tailoring offers and storefront strategies for different types of partnerships? And then what is the impact of that in terms of even sort of like conversion rate numbers?
Yeah, I think this is where candidly, a lot of programs will kind of fall short right now, which is that they put so much effort into what we just described, into personalizing that recruiting strategy and that activation strategy. And they really get that creator or practitioner or B2B partner or whoever that is, even a customer affiliate, really amped up on what's in it for them and this really captivating story that they've kind of crafted, and they tell that story on their channels to their audience, and so often that story gets lost in the memory bank as they transition to your brand site, where the story and narrative kind of changes to what's kind of hard coded onto your brand site. And so if you just are, if you're I'll just do like a random example. There's a electrolyte gum company that we work with, and they have just a gum that athletes chew it to help them with electrolyte balance. And a lot of those athletes are talking about the sports they play or the hobbies they have, where it's super helpful for them to use that product. And a lot of times in a world where I'm like resonating with a marathon runner and I'm learning about all these techniques and how to hydrate and how this can help me run my first marathon, I can click that affiliate link and that story could get lost as I just go to a general website about electrolyte gum. The beauty of focusing on your storefront experience in this electrolyte gum company, we work with them at CreatorCommerce. The company's actually called Electro. And when people actually click that marathon runners link now, they actually go to that storefront and stay in the context of a marathon focused electrolyte gum brand. So the beauty of thinking about how your storefront experience can support the personas of affiliates you work with is that you're all just working with the same audience here. Their audience then immediately becomes your audience the moment they hit your site. So it's really important to think about, what does your site need to do to be really dynamic and well positioned to speak to these different segments of audiences who might view you as the product for running marathons, versus someone else coming in, the product might view as the gum for lifting weights. So these are concepts that are kind of fundamentally very difficult in the current day. That's candidly what CreatorCommerce helps brands with, to make their site reactive to those. That's dynamic storytelling. But this is just a great explanation point on how personas have kind of ballooned into a more mature program these days. And I think it's just kind of emblematic of like where affiliate marketing is. It's now become so proven and so strong that just like any other channel, it eventually makes sense to think about not only getting the traffic, but making sure we take care of that traffic in the same context that it entered the site under. And that's really the huge, honestly, the huge innovation we've been seeing out there over the last 2025 going to 2026, super strong right now.
Yeah. So maybe even, this could be a generalized stat, but I think sort of matching the landing page experience with what the user came in on should have an impact on conversion rates. Ultimately, like what do you guys see across the board, right? I totally get, like, it's going to depend on the product, right? If you're selling a $10,000 mattress, you still have to have discretionary income and need, and like there's other factors. But as people get these storefront pages live, like what is the typical lift that someone sees with an active program that you guys have just observed?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it. I think there's two kind of e-commerce metrics that brands can kind of optimize around depending on how many SKUs you have and your product price point. I think the first thing is, typically when it comes to conversion rate, if you are a brand leveraging creators, practitioners, customer ambassadors, affiliates, you can generally see anywhere from a 30% to roughly a 50% lift by just focusing on, how do I keep the name, image, and likeness and discount clarity on my pages on the other side. By that, I mean making sure literally their name, their picture is on the rest of your site so that people can see continuity in the partnership and they don't forget why they're even on your site. The second thing is the discount. So often people click links from an affiliate and they have to do a crazy amount of mental math looking at prices and thinking, what is 30% off? What is 20% off? And they're not actually seeing that discounted price. They're seeing a much bigger price, which gives them a feeling of sticker shock, even though they are like fictitiously sitting on a discount code that they're going to enter like later in the funnel. So just even showing that discounted price, showing that name, and just making it very clear that you are in an offer and that offer is guaranteed at every step of the way here, tremendously helps conversions. We see brands stretch that conversion benefit upwards of like 100%, even in crazy scenarios, 200%, when they start to focus on how do they use those affiliates to affect the merchandising that is letting the creators choose the order of products on the page, what goes into different bundles on the page, what goes into different collections. Really useful in high SKU product scenarios. Not talking it needs to be thousands of products, but even if you're talking 30 plus products, using them to reduce the endless product hunt that a consumer might have to go through to find all the different products that they know the affiliate was talking about. That's just is making it faster. It's reducing risk of them feeling like they're paying more than they really are because they do have a discount. Let's show that discount to them. So you can see great benefits from that. The backside is AOV. You can see a lot. You can see certainly bigger carts when you do focus on that merchandising focus of letting your affiliates kind of dictate the ability to order products on the page. And that just naturally pins into the fact that in content, they might be talking about 2-3 products. User goes to your site, they see those 2-3 products, they want to try those 2-3 products. Versus if you focus on one or them having to search them all, you just get a lot of attrition. So something we do in our platform is allow brands to share the ability, really strict ability for the affiliates to denote their favorite products and the order of those favorite products, and even make multiple collections if they want to go that far, so that that merchandising is reflected on the backside of their affiliate links. And that's all kind of without anybody having to do like a crazy implementation or building some custom stuff. It's really more of like a simple form.
Yeah, I think that's you could maybe argue, I could just do that with like my one affiliate. Sure. But that scale becomes trickier, but you want to unlock that conversion rate benefit of 30 to 50% or even double with the scale, right? Because then you really start to feel it. Are there other ways that you guys have like recommend to merchants, like evaluating these different personas, or how do you measure these different personas against each other, or other benefits, right? You're sending this traffic through, you still have your newsletter, you still have retargeting, like you have other things that can also be at play. But are there any other notable areas in terms of measurement when it comes to treating personas the same or differently?
Yeah, there's kind of two ways I would look at it. The first sounds kind of complicated, but it's really not, which is the first way I always recommend it is, and if you haven't done it in general, it's a great idea, is go into Shopify and run your client lifetime value report and just start to compare. You'll want to, before you do that, tag customers from your affiliate programs, which is actually, pretty straightforward to do if you run those reports on those acquisitions. But you can tag those customers, run your CLTV report, and see actually what is the value of customers you're getting from affiliate versus not, and break those down by personas. And you can actually get a pretty clear lens if you are more data driven. If you're not so savvy with Shopify reports and that sounds kind of intimidating, there's simpler ways to look at the value of them. The first thing is to think about, how do personas affect your CAC in terms of like all the cost that goes into standing up that traffic from a certain affiliate. So if you take a step back and you think about what is the CAC that goes into getting like an affiliate going and getting like first time customers from them, like typically there's going to be like time, there's going to be your margin you give up, there's going to be product seeding. And so it's really important to think about that from the perspective of which personas are we actually standing up and getting more sales from by sending the least amount of gifts, and that, or like by like we find with this persona that phone calls do really well, and when we get on the phone with them, we find that there's an 80% chance they share. So I would start thinking about, we think about CAC a lot applied to paid channels, that where it's like a literal easy to see CAC. CAC and affiliate is almost a little different because there is like the actual acquisition cost of like your discounts and your commission give outs, but then there's all these abstract things like time and energy and product that you're seeding out. And so there's a bit of a manual exercise I recommend going through to see what is leading to more efficient outcomes. And a great example of that is we have a brand called Bird and Bee that we work with. They're a fertility product and supplement, and they found they work with both influencers, customer advocates, medical practitioners. They even work with hospital groups, like putting the hospital group as the affiliate and those logos and branding on the pages. And they actually found that by focusing on sending less product, but more focusing on like doing more educational onboarding calls. And even at some cases, like going to, this is crazy to say, but like going to hospitals and like trying to like meet with folks there, that from an effort standpoint and cost standpoint led to a more efficient ability to drive traffic by just putting in that effort. And so it's a bit of an abstract example, but it proves the point that just focus on your total inputs and your total outputs. A lot of people think of it just as like product seeding or just the number of emails I send. But if you look at it all kind of inclusively, you can find that some personas are actually more potent, even though it's not the traditional sense of just like spamming and trying to get more of them on board.
Yeah, I mean, you had talked about that merchant in particular versus more traditional publishers and affiliates, and how you also like that directly affects like how you go about recruiting them initially, like what kind of forms they're seeing, what kind of emphasis you're putting on, like this is what you get versus this is the value for your patients or your end users. And that really does have a drastic impact on like setting expectations for the future, driving that overall value long term. And I think your example of like people actually going to the hospital versus just sending more products sort of highlights that, there's only so much information, context, value people can absorb from a good itself if it's not as obvious. Sometimes it just needs an explanation. So I can see where you could take that kind of visit and say, this really helped. How can we make this more scalable? Maybe with video, maybe with meetings, maybe with something that we can then sort of do one to many, because we can't always travel, but that insight is essential. So you might, from an investment perspective, yeah, you might overinvest a little bit on the front end, but like now that we've learned, we can scale this up and really get a lot of leverage out of this versus not investing and just kind of piddling along, right? And hoping you get lucky, which maybe can happen sometimes, but sometimes that getting lucky is a curse because you don't really know how to replicate it ever again. But you're convinced you do, but you never actually figured it out. Kenyon, what else? We're sort of closing, so anybody that's on, feel free to ask any questions in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or on StreamYard. Happy to dive into any questions or comments folks have, observations that they have, super specific, broad, whatever it might be. But while we wait for any of those, if they're to come in, Kenyon, what other things should maybe people in this webinar, like they tend to see merchant programs that are super mature. Like you see the same D2C brand all over your Instagram, and sometimes you think like a product like this, I'm just not at that level yet, right? But I think that's inaccurate. But how do you guys feel like merchants that are not necessarily like sub $1 million, but maybe they're sort of in that smaller side, they're trying to get traction? How can somebody that doesn't have the mature program where it's easy dollars and cents, you just do the math, oh yeah, we're just going to scale this up, this is great, how can they benefit from an implementation like this, both in terms of how easy is it to implement, but then also in terms of even a nascent program, this can drive a lot of value, so that you see that, hey, if I keep investing here, I'm going to see growth. How would you speak to that sort of like smaller segment of Shopify merchants?
Yeah, that I honestly think it's to answer both in terms of CreatorCommerce, but just holistically, like, when we founded CreatorCommerce, the hardest thing was to get new brands to try us out because we didn't have case studies, So you have to put a lot of work in to get your first case study. And when you have those case studies, you can finally de-risk it for other brands to try you out, try to get the same results. That's how we built CreatorCommerce, got it off the ground, and through trust and compounding case studies. And I think that's very similar to your affiliate program, which is to think about how can you just get that one really good creator live, ambassador live, practitioner live, and make them your central case study. Make it a very visual experience that they share around, that like you can even send that to other affiliates you're trying to work with to be like, hey, look at Ryan. We're working with Ryan. He's done an amazing job showing how this works. You can go to his landing page, check him out, see what he's doing, what he has to say, make him your visual case study, and then use that to compound and get those other creators on board if you're just trying to get that ball rolling and you're struggling to get compounding results. So having that visual affiliate link where that link leads to an experience and you can show that a creator is sticking their neck out for you helps de-risk it and create that confidence that creators are willing to really line with this brand. And what's great is you can repurpose that. So like if you can get a really visual collab up where someone's made some content, that content now lives on their own landing page, you can use that content in both your affiliate newsletter, which I always recommend having, and in the sake of a personas example, like do them by persona. If you work with kind of two different types of creators and they deserve their own kind of way of speaking and reflecting, do run two. But what I would say is this is get your first case study, make it very visual, show it, be very loud and proud when you go out there and recruit other creators to draw attention to it. And then also as you accumulate more of those and you get more of those and maybe you get to 2 and then you get to 3, now you got 5 great performers in your program, show them off in your newsletter to any other affiliates that are sitting dormant, because it keeps you top of mind. It's another touch point, and you can kind of space them out to create a drip series. So it's like maybe you got 5 really strong affiliates right now and they're all performing really well at the same time. Well, you can put a few of those in your pocket, and so in the next week you can send a newsletter that focuses on how Ryan has been a very successful affiliate and some content he's making. Then in 2 weeks, you can show how Taylor's been successful. Then in 2 weeks, you can show how AJ's been successful. You can kind of space those out and really create that consistent drip series of here's a case study, here's a case study, here's a case study, here's a case study, and just really make it feel extremely likely that you can succeed as an affiliate and show what's in it for you by showing what has been in it for them and just showcasing those success stories. So that's my kind of number one advice, is that people at that kind of stage 1, they kind of spread themselves out too thin. They start to reach out to too many people without a central case study or concept for what's in it for them. And they start to speak in one persona instead of first evaluating that core case study. What is that persona? Let's go get more in that persona. And then the moment you establish another persona in your audience, start building that out as its own as well. And that, I know that's sounds like a lot of work. Sometimes it's the necessary work to at least get the program going, but at least, you can rest assured knowing on Refersion, you can kind of evaporate all those headaches when it comes to managing the affiliate side. On CreatorCommerce, we do a ton of work on our side to back up customers and merchants on spinning up those shopping experiences in a very visual way and collecting the content so that there's something to share in your case studies. But that I would begin with that case study number 1.
Yeah, I think people do tend to get worried about, well, how am I supposed to do this at scale? But just focus on the one first, right? Find the perfect fit, and you should be able to replicate once you have that example. We got one question in before we wrap up from Ben. Is it necessary to get permission from the affiliate to reference them as a case study, or is it just something that you're building in, that people generally build into terms? Is it, hey, this is public anyway, so it's pretty fair game? What's the general rule of thumb that you take there?
Yeah. That's a thoughtful way to look at it. You definitely need to think about a case study from a private perspective to a public perspective. I think it's very necessary if you're going to be running ads or publishing this case study publicly and it's going to live somewhere. You definitely want the affiliate in the loop. You don't need to go to the extent of signing a contract or anything, but definitely get that written thumbs up. Private case studies, we're talking a very different story. It is totally fair game. And you can kind of think about it in a lot of scenarios in life. It is totally fair game to have a private conversation referencing something that actually happened, that is not fabricated and is written in history, that you had worked with this creator and you had seen this result. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to, I wouldn't recommend going down any paths of disclosing how much someone made or talking anything financial, but it is totally fair game to, in your outbound and private communications, one-on-one emails, Google Meets, to disclose, like, yeah, we worked with Kara. You can even go see this on her page. She did a tremendous job. Her audience resonated extremely well with this. She converted really well. And she was one of our top performing creators. I think this is what made her so successful. that's totally fair game because it happened. You're not fabricating, and you're not like publicly using them in any misappropriated way. Obviously, if you're going to run ads in anything public, I would always cover your bases there. You don't want to potentially put them on the bad list there or get on their bad list. So obviously, just get approval for anything public, but anything private, you are just having a conversation and speaking of facts.
Yeah. Well, Kenyon, really appreciate the time, especially because I know that you've got to go drive across the country. But again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Again, I'm Ryan, CEO here at Refersion. Kenyon is the CEO at CreatorCommerce, helping programs scale conversion rates 30 to 50% just through those personalized storefront pages. You can find them at creatorcommerce.shop, right?
CreatorCommerce.shop. Yep.
And feel free to reach out with any questions you guys might have. But thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all.